So today we are going to a few things that I'll be covering is a very basic understanding of what coffee is. What are the two main varieties of coffee, which are Robusta and Arabica, which is very well known in India. There's a third one as well, but which is called Liberica. I didn't want to cover it as there's not much literature or research done on it currently. Uh, I am also learning more about it, and at a given stage, when I'm confident enough to share that data with you, we'll be doing it across our social media channels, which is on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. I'll also be covering certain processing methods which are washed, sort of how it looks. We'll go more into detail about this. Uh, a pulp sun-dried, also a lot of people call it a honey sun-dried as well, and a natural coffee. And we've been able to acquire some different roast levels of coffee, which we'll be getting into detail with. I am using the same green beans in a roasted form as well, which is available as a light, medium, and dark roast. And I'll be brewing it with some new coffee gear that we've just introduced. One being the Trinity Zero, uh, sort of looks like this, very compact. Um, Next one being the Espro Blue. It's a flat bottom pour over. We'll understand how the coffee is tasting in this as well. And the next one is a Delta press. It might look a lot like AeroPress, but you'll be very surprised of the brewing mechanism that is used in this. For me to be able to brew all this coffee gear, I'll be using certain elements which are very important in brewing a great cup. And since I've been doing this for quite a few years, I've been very particular about how I am brewing my coffee. So I'll be using a scale. It's by this brand called Varia. It gives you a basic understanding of how to tear your coffee if you want to weigh something in a gram, ounce, or a ml format. And it also has a timer in it. I am using the EKG Stack Kettle by Fellow. I can manipulate the temperature on it, use the hold format as well. I'll go into more detail about that. And I'm using the water, which I've diluted some third wave water in it. These are basically mineral supplements. They sort of look like this. I can add this packet to say 3.5 liters of water. So I just store it in a bigger can and then use it on a daily basis if I wish to brew my coffee. So I think we can dive right into it now. Uh, I'm sure every one of you might have read about the history of coffee or how it came into being, and a basic understanding of what's in your final cup. So I just wanted to discuss that with you briefly before diving right into brewing. So history of coffee actually started with Ethiopia before it got into Yemen, and coming to India, it was the Sufi saint Baba Budan who was traveling to Yemen for his learnings, and he stole around 7 to 8 beans. Now, if you Google history of coffee, you will read at least 1,500 different stories of, there was not 7 beans, there were 8 beans. He hid it in his belly, he hid it in his beard, he just carried it in a stick. No one really knows the apt story of it, but the standard globally, what the standard has been talked about or discussed about across formats is that there was a Sufi saint, Baba Buddha. He was traveling for his teachings to Yemen, and that's when he came across coffee as a beverage, where it was exploding at the time because it wasn't available anywhere else. Yemen was very strict about coffee export. They either used to boil your green beans so that you cannot cultivate it anywhere else, or they used to send the coffee in a roasted format for you to consume it. So this humble beverage has had quite a journey before getting into your final cup that we have and enjoy today. And we've been very particular about the different kinds of roast, the different kinds of brewers. So he stole those 7 beans. He came to Chikmagalur and planted them. And today, Chikmagalur is one of the biggest exporters of coffee from India. And to pay homage to the Sufi saint Baba Budan, we have very aptly named one of the mountain regions in Chikmagalur, which is known by the name of Baba Budan Giri. So you will find a lot of coffee estates that you read on your packet, which are based out of them. In India, there is also Araku, which is doing great coffee in Andhra. There's some coffee which is also growing in the northeast regions nowadays, and Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Chikmagalur are one of the highest producing coffee regions and also exporters of coffee. Now, due to the introduction of third wave of coffee in India, we've been able to come across something that was lying right in our background, that is specialty coffee and introduction to coffee in general. Us being a tea brewing nation, we've all definitely gone like grew up drinking tea only. I myself was drinking cutting chai for more than half of my life. I came across coffee very early in 2015 or 16, and I've fallen in love with it. Uh, I enjoy my indulgent tea as well, but coffee has my heart. And I'm sure whoever is attending for them also, it's sort of the same. So, due to this boost of specialty coffee, a lot of people have now started experimenting with their beans. You hear about these fermenting methods that these coffees are going through. You might have heard about barrel aging their coffees, and a lot of experiments that are going on farm level. But we are just going to understand the basics before we dive into something a little more complex, and the cup that you enjoy on a daily basis, what really goes on behind the scenes before it gets to you. So, starting with coffee is a cherry. Uh, it's a fruit bearing plant basically. Indian harvest generally starts from November to mid Feb, not more than that, and then there is post processing. So, it's a plant which first flowers, then it will give you green cherries, which will turn into either yellow or red depending on the strain of the coffee. Mostly in if you check in India, there are very specific estates who are able to do the yellow cherries, and there is very little research about yellow cherries in India, but it's going up. Where people are investing a lot in the education about that particular cherry, but mostly what you might have come across as literature is the red cherry. So what happens is, on the farm level, there are people who will pluck those cherries out for you. The first stage that you will see is plucking and garbling. That is basically just hand picking whatever you see is not up to the quality of that particular estate. Then it will go to post processing. So first, to understand what those cherries are two basic strains of coffee. That is, one is Robusta, sort of look like this. It might all be looking the same to you. I'll just take some in my hand and show you. And the next one is Arabica. Now, there's a lot of noise out there about it being a superior coffee or it being a better coffee, and how Robusta is not that great of a coffee. I don't agree to it. I enjoy my indulgence in Robusta as well. For me, there is no such thing as bad coffee. Every coffee is brewed properly, if enjoyed in the moment, is great. And if you're able to brew properly, if you're able to create blends properly, there is it shouldn't matter to you if it's a Robusta or Arabica in the first place. But a basic fact about Arabica is, if you see the strain, it's slightly rounder in form. I'll compare them side by side. It's slightly rounder in form. It's smaller than your Arabica. Arabica is more oval in shape, and it's slightly more denser in my hand as I feel it as well. That's due to it having a higher moisture content than Robusta. It's more fruitier, but Robusta has this thing where the name, as it suggests, Robusta, it's very robust on your palate, but it's great for someone who enjoys a little more heavy bodied or likes a little more sweetness in their cup, to be honest. I personally enjoy Robustas in my espresso as well. One of my favorite blends currently is a 80 Arabica and a 20 Robusta by Beanro. uh, I think it really brings in a lot of complexity in your cup, and there's a really good bittersweet finish to your end espresso, which is sort of a standard when it comes to it. So Arabica, basic differences are it grows on a higher elevation than a Robusta. It's more prone to diseases when it comes to coffee plantation, and slightly more difficult to grow as well, given the elevation and it being very easy to, not very easy to cultivate. Robusta grows at a lower elevation, has less complexities than Arabica, but it really depends on what you want out of your coffee. There's no such thing. I can't stress enough on the fact that there's really no thing as bad coffee. It's either a bad barista or bad brewing, or you not being able to understand your coffee in general, whatever information the estate has been able to provide you. But the green beans are the last thing to bloom. And when I say robustas are easy to grow, this is me, a layman, saying it. On farm level, honestly, everything is a hard work. But if compared to Arabica, it's slightly more easier given that it's more accessible. uh, Post this harvest and processing, we decide what different processing method the coffees will go through. Now, I'm sure you've read on the bag that, if there is coffee bag A which says this is a washed coffee, or it's a pulse and dried coffee, or it's a natural coffee, it basically means the green beans have gone through different processing methods to bring out the nuances from the origin and what are the desirable complexities the estate wants to bring out from that particular coffee. Am I going too fast? You could let me know, or if you want me to slow down a little bit. The first coffee, depending on if it's Arabica or a Robusta, the estate will take a call on what they want that particular coffee to go through when it comes to processing. Now, the first one that we will cover is a washed coffee. First one is a washed coffee. In this, what happens is the coffee cherries are picked, it's put in a depulper, and they get rid of the outer cherry cover, they get rid of the pulp, and it's kept in a water fermentation tank. Uh, you might have read about it being 24 hours, but it varies farm to farm. It could be 8 hours, it could be 16 hours, it could be 24 hours, or it could be more than that, depending on the standard practices of that particular farm and the time available for that particular processing. And one of the most important aspects, that is what is best for that particular coffee. So your cherries are picked, you get rid of the outer cover, you get rid of the pulp by putting it in a fermentation tank, and then it is dried out. So the green beans are really not in contact that much with your fruit layer of the cherry, and you will get nuance when you post roasting. You get these nuances like uh, chocolate or very nutty tasting coffees, or a lot of spices as well sometimes. uh, Processing is one of the major aspects in bringing out the final flavor in your cup. Next one is a pulse and dried coffee. It's slightly yellowish in color than your washed. If I compare it side by side, on my right there is washed coffee, on my left there is pulse and dried. So in pulse and dried, they only get rid of the outer cover, like that is the red cover, which can further be used to dry it out and make cascara tea out of it. And they dry it with the pulp on patio beds. So what I have is a yellow honey, or pulse under it, also known as honey coffee because of the color it takes while drying. So this one is a yellow honey. It also depends on how much you're drying it. That's the color it will take. So the first stage is yellowing. If you dry it further with the pulp, it will become red, and then eventually black honey as well. So how much you're drying it will also affect the final flavor of your cup. Your yellow honeys tend to be very slight fruity, like you'll have acidity of bananas, you'll have acidity of apples. If you go a little further, like a red honeys tend to taste a lot like berries. And if you go black honey, then you will get a lot of viney, fermenty notes as well. It really depends on what you enjoy and what that farm is able to do at that particular stage. And the most important, what is best for that particular coffee. Next one that we have is a natural coffee. You can see it's the yellowest of all. This is due to the coffee cherries being picked and directly put to dry. There is no depulping of the coffee cherries. There is no fermenting of in a water tank. Nothing. They just directly put the coffee cherries. The first garbling happens where they're initially whatever they're able to see by eye and remove it. They're removing it. and they're directly putting it across on Indian raised beds. And this coffee is being raked on a usual basis, just to make sure that there is no moisture which is holding on and it's evenly drying, so that there is no formation of mildew or fungus or anything. And post the coffee cherry has totally dried out, they put it through a huller to take out the green beans inside of it. So I'll cover the natural part again. So they just directly pick the coffee cherries, they put it out to dry. The coffee is evenly raked to make sure that it's drying out uniformly, and to make sure that there's no formation of mildew and fungus. In my opinion, a lot of amenities which are available on the farm also matters. Like if your farm is based in a place where there's not a lot of water, you will tend not to do a wash coffee, because it takes up a lot of water in its processing. Uh, if you want to bring out complexity, if you want to bring out different nuances or more fruitier notes in your coffee, you tend to go with PSC. And natural is basically actually one of the most toughest to process as well. So you really want someone on your farm who understands coffee in detail, or understands their coffee in detail. So before you purchase a pack, you should really understand that what is it that you enjoy in your final cup. Do you enjoy nutty, fruity, chocolatey note? Do you enjoy a really good juicy fruity cup? Or do you want something that's a little more complex, that can give you different nuances depending on the roast level? Are there any questions for me?
So, Rasika, just a question. This whole
Right.
process of converting cherries to the bean,
Right.
we don't get to see this in the market, right? Is it applicable when we
Yeah.
are buying the beans and roasting it ourselves at home? Is it when we?
Yeah. Yeah. So this the processing stage till you decide it's if it's going to be a wash, pulp and dried and natural, is accessible only on the farms. So the best way to do it is either research a lot, because these are trade secrets. Not everyone is open enough to share all this with you. And I understand, I absolutely understand why. But the form that you will get it in is either green beans if you're buying it in really small quantities, or the final roast.
Okay, but when we are buying beans, then can we question how, I mean, the whole process is, does anyone mention that?
So it's actually mentioned, most of the details are actually mentioned on your coffee bags as well,
Okay,
about where it's grown, what processing it has gone through. Is it a
awesome.
Arabica or a Robusta or a blend of both? What a lot of coffee companies also mention the elevation it has gone through, the processing, if there is any post processing which is happening, or the roast level which has been decided by the roaster partner.
Awesome, awesome. So,
But when you're buying a coffee bag, what is easiest for me is to understand the origin, because flavor is very perceptive. For me, my palate is very different than the one who has cupped that particular coffee. So what I try to do is try to taste different coffees which are available in the market, and just focus on the origin aspects of it. If I like coffee from say Chikmagalur, I will try different coffees which are available in Chikmagalur, and there is what I've noticed is there is at least one or two aspects that I enjoy in that particular cup. I hope that answers your question.
yeah, sure, it does. Thanks.
Yeah. So there are different roast levels that the coffees go through. Post processing it, if the farm decides it's going to be a wash or a pulse and dried or an actual, the coffees now go to a curing work center, which will be available like one in the entire state, and it will be in this form with a parchment. So parchment is like the second last cover in your coffee. If I have to show you, it opens up this way like peanuts. So this is a cover. They get rid of this in the huller before sending it to your roaster partner. And what your favorite roaster might be receiving are these green beans, which sort of have like this silver skin on top of it. This is just to make sure that whenever someone's roasting coffee, they get the roaster to a certain temperature and then introduce the green beans to it. If there is no silver skin on top of it, what will happen is there will be some spotting on your green beans. Like they will roast in some, like it will be an uneven roast, to put it simply. Uh, there'll be a lot of charring, and if you take out the green beans, there will be a lot of black marks and a evenly roasted brown beans. So a silver skin is very, very important before introducing it to your roaster. You take something as simple as peanuts, for example. You put it in a hot iron pan. What happens is eventually it starts getting rid of that brown layer that's on top of it before you get the final product. So in roasting, you introduce your green beans with silver skin. Now the first step that happens is when so this is a roast level, like how it eventually gets to a medium dark to dark roast, is that it will sort of become like a pale color before it starts changing it. So this changing of color is called a Maillard reaction. This is when your sucrose which are present in the coffees are now turning to sugar. So all the flavor aspects, right? The development that's happening, whatever is mentioned on the pack, like on this pack, for example, it's written Baker's chocolate, roasted nuts, and cedar. All this is happening during the roasting process, and it really depends on how light or dark you're going to understand what particular flavor notes are you going to get out of the particular coffee. Now, when I say flavors, it's not like if it's written orange, then I'll be tasting oranges. No, there will be some nuances of oranges which are present in the coffee, which the cupper has tasted after roasting it. It's not a legit rule that whatever the cupper has tasted, you will also taste, because everyone's palate is a different. So you have to take this information with a grain of salt. Where if the cupper is saying it has taste notes of oranges, what he means that is it can have the acidity of oranges and not actual taste of oranges. So when they say flavor notes, it's both the flavor, actual taste, and also the aroma of the coffee, not just the final sip. So when you're roasting the coffee, it goes through certain chemical changes. First, what you can see is the pale color. This is when you start getting a little grassy smell, or you can understand, okay, now the coffee has actually started roasting and it's getting rid of the moisture level that is present in the beans. Eventually, as it gets darker, it will get to this orange sort of tan color. This is when you know that, okay, now the sugars have started like really breaking down, and it's going to start coating the green beans. So both your breaking down of the sugars and the color changes due to a chemical reaction is known as Maillard reaction. And Maillard reaction is not something that is limited to coffee in general. You can see it in your day-to-day cooking also. Even if you're cooking like potatoes, or just put some sugar on hot pan and you'll see those chemical changes which is happening. What will happen is the sugar will first become a little translucent, then it will start taking this yellowish hue, it will become brown, and eventually it will start caramelizing. This is when your coffee is at first crack. In first crack is like one of my favorite aspects in coffee. This is when your development time also starts. So first crack is basically all the moisture that was trapped inside the beans starts coming out, and you can hear this popcorn like popping sound from the roaster. You can either decide to take the coffee out from the roaster at this stage, or you can decide to go a little further and roast it to a light medium or a darker coffee. So crack comes development time. Development time will vary between 15 to 30 seconds. Like when it comes to coffee roasting, even that 1 second is very integral, and it can definitely change your end tasting cup as well. So you will during the first crack initially comes at an 8 to 10 minute stage, depending on the batch size, the size of your roaster, and what coffee you're roasting. So first crack is when your light medium happens. If you want to go to second crack, that is when you get your dark roasted coffees. The best way to recognize a dark roasted coffee is just take some beans in your hand and you'll be able to see oils on them. If you decide to go further, push second crack, now all your sugars will start turning into carbon and your coffee will eventually taste very charred or burnt. So max, my suggestion would be to go up till dark. If you're someone who brews and enjoys a very heavy bodied cup or wants to add some milk to it, don't go past that. So what I'll do is
No, it's
post
good till
this
now.
roasting
It's
session.
going good till
Yeah,
now. Yeah,
sorry.
it's very
Okay,
good till
thank you
now.
so much.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so post your roasting. Sure. Espresso roast is something which is going to be tasting very compatible with your espresso machine. So it should be a roast level where your fruity notes that are coming through should still be should be present, but there should be a bittersweet note to it as well. Like espresso roast is something which has to be very dynamic, right? Like, cause your espresso machine is not limited to just espresso. You're going to be brewing americanos with it, so you're ideally going to dilute it with either water or steamed milk or flavors or chocolate powders, or there's a lot of stuff that that's happening. So in espresso roast, it's to put it simply, it should have characteristics which are very very dynamic, and it should be able to cater to everyone's palate. So if someone's looking for a fruitier espresso, they should be able to get it. If someone enjoys a little bitterness in their cup, they should be able to get it. So simply, if I had to decide my espresso roast, firstly, I will not just use one single coffee. I will either try to blend a Robusta or a Arabica, or I will try to blend a medium with a medium dark coffee or a medium or a dark coffee together, so that I am able to get those fruity notes and also get those bitter, like good bittersweet notes in the end. And when I say bittersweet, I mean bittersweet like dark chocolate. I don't mean absolutely bitter like lemon tea. Okay, so post roasting, there is a very important aspect to understand the quality of your cup, which the roaster partner does, which is cupping, which is ideally just putting in 10 to 12 grams of coarsely ground coffee. It really depends on your standard of that particular company. They put some hot water on it and they let it brew for 4 to 8 minutes. So 4 minutes, you break the crust, you let it rest for another 4 minutes so that it cools down a little bit. You don't want to burn your tongue, and they just slurp it directly. So there are no equipments involved, there are no filters involved, nothing. Your coffee is literally just interacting with water, and you're getting the final taste of the cup. So there are certain parameters which the cuppers have to understand, which are what is the fragrance or the aroma of your particular coffee. So how fragrance and aromas are different is fragrances are your dry smells, which are like exceptions of perfumes. So fragrances are, I pick this up and I smell this. This is fragrance. If I put water in it and extract it and then smell it, then it becomes aroma. So what you taste and you smell as well, that is aroma. You understand how the acidity of that particular coffee is. You understand what the mouthfeel of the body of that particular coffee is. You want to understand after brewing 3 cups together, it is balanced. Is it balanced? Is it uniform? So there are certain parameters which the cuppers have to also follow to really be fair to that particular coffee before they decide to roast huge batches and start selling it. So it's one of the most important aspects to follow. But you guys don't really have to worry. Whatever package you eventually end up buying in the market, if it's named specialty, it has actually gone through the cupping process before it's being packed. But if it's just an activity that you want to practice or experience at home, we'll be putting out a video very soon for you guys to be able to do it. And will also curate a small cupping sheet which is easy to use, so that you guys can experience and also take notes. Uh, this is sort of the final stage that a coffee goes through before being bagged and shipped out, or being bagged and sent out to cafes for brewing. What I'll do now is help you understand the different information that is available on the coffee packet. But before that, I just want to ask if you guys have any questions for me.
A quick one here. So basically, specialty coffee we understand and cupping, etc. In this whole
Right.
process, when is it that specialty versus an instant get segregated, and what's the difference?
Okay, so a very good question. special. When I say a coffee is specialty coffee, whenever you're cupping the coffee, it's rated out of 100. So all your acidity of the coffee, the fragrance, aroma, the mouthfeel, the uniformity, the tactile notes. Tactile notes are basically how the texture is on your palate. And also, if there are any defects available, your coffee gets rated out of 100. If your coffee is able to score above 80, only then it is considered specialty. Otherwise, it's just your premium coffee that is available in your local supermarket as well. So this is an activity which not just me as an individual can decide, but these are certified cuppers who are scoring your coffee, so they are very well versed. In instant, what happens is it's basically brewed coffee, which is further broken down by dehydration. So what you're getting is ideally brewed. You're just putting it in hot water for consumption. So you really have to ask before making a purchase that uh, will you go to your neighborhood cafe and order an instant coffee while you are having it? So that's something you really have to consider because it's not cheap anymore. Like for a packet also you get 250 or 300 rupees for a 200-gram pack. You might as well invest in something that has gone through multiple quality checks before getting it to you, and it also gives you the experience of brewing it. I hope that answers your question.
Sure, thank you.
Sorry. Is espresso roast past the second crack? Mostly no, but it really depends on where you are having your coffee. Whenever someone decides to go past second crack, what they are wanting is a very standardized taste. If I go in the morning and if I go in the evening, I should be, as a consumer, I am able to get the same type of coffee. When you decide to roast at a certain level, like light, medium, dark, depending on the day, depending on how it's being brewed, depending on how it's being stored, the complexities of the coffees keep changing. When it's past second crack, it's as good as not having it only because what you're able to taste is very burnt or charred coffee. So no, espresso roast is definitely not after a second crack, but it really depends on where you're drinking it. If you're someone uh, who doesn't mind the changing nuances, you will get those changing nuances in a specialty cafe. Uh, Espresso roast is actually blending coffee in general is an art. If I am a roaster, it does not guarantee that I can blend coffee really well. So for an espresso roast, you will ideally find something which the roaster partner has decided to blend two or more coffees together to be able to cater to you. If you decide to come to their cafe tomorrow, order an espresso, order an americano, or order something which is milk based, they want to give you a good experience throughout. So if they go past second crack, what will happen is if you have that coffee as an espresso, you will really not enjoy it. So espresso roast in general will be something from a medium dark or a dark roasted coffee, not past that. Light coffee is differences between light and a espresso roast. Okay, so light coffees generally tend to have the most characteristics which has been picked up from an origin. So if uh, what is available as a chemical compound in the soil, what is being grown around it, what kind of water you are introducing to the coffee while growing it, what sort of processing method it has gone through, all those origin characteristics will really, really shine through in your light roasted coffee. So light roasted coffees, for an Indian palate at least, I will not recommend it for an espresso because what will happen is light roasted coffees tend to be very fruity, very acidic. Now, acidity can be of two types, but what you're looking for is a favorable one. So, orange is also acidity, lemon is also acidity, but oranges are a good kind of acidity. Lemons are not that great. But to put it simply, you can have a glass of orange juice, you cannot have a glass of lemon juice concentrate. You will want to dilute it. So if you're going for a light roasted coffee, uh, always tend to go for a manual brewing method, which is apt with it. For a espresso roast, you know that it's going to be a very pressurized environment that the coffee is going to be brewed in. So the extraction is going to happen at a faster rate. Light roasted coffees, when you brew it in a manual brew, go for a pour over or something which is being brewed over time. Like it will take 2 or maybe 1.5, 2 or 3 minutes as well. For an espresso, it hardly takes you less than 30 seconds to brew. If you do that in a light roasted coffee, it will taste very under extracted, very, very sour. Anything else that you guys want to ask me? You can roast coffee at home. Depends on what you plan to do with it. If you're just doing for a learning experience, just grab. Sorry. If you're just doing it for a learning experience and you want to understand the chemical reactions that are happening, just take some little coffee, put it on your hot pan, and you'll see them going through it. But if you really want to take down notes and understand internally what the chemical changes that the coffee is going through, you will have to invest in a home roaster. Now, what I'll do is I'll brew these coffees in the roasted format. Um, the first one that I'm brewing is this natural processed coffee, which is light roasted by Naivo. Uh, for this, I'm going to be using a Delta press. I know it looks very similar to AeroPress, but the mechanism is very similar to espressos. I didn't want to use an immersion method. Immersion meaning I didn't want to put the coffee and water together while brewing, because since it's light roasted, it will start getting over extracted very fast, and I don't want a process which will which requires me to agitate the coffee. In this brewer, what happens is I am actually putting the coffee over here. There is a paper filter that has been placed. I'll put my ground coffee in here, plug it in, put some water, and then press through. So the water is actually showering on the coffee before getting collected in my cup. So I'll get started with it. So the first step before brewing any coffee that you want to do is make sure that you've kept the water for heating. For all my brewing methods, I'm going to be using 90 degrees of water. In coffee, what I really enjoy is like try to keep all the parameters similar to understand what are the basic changes that are happening while brewing it. So for a Delta press, what I want to do is take 18 grams of roasted beef. You guys can see in the color as well, like it's very different than what your dark or your medium would look. It's just past first crack. Maybe they gave it like around 10 to 15 seconds, not more than that. I'll be grinding this really fine because since the water and coffee are not interacting together with each other and it's just going to be pressure, I want to make sure that it has enough time to interact and extract all the flavors from the coffee. One too fine. I've kept almost like salt like texture of the ground beef. Yeah. You guys can see, right? Okay. So when it comes to any paper filter based brewer, one of the main things that you have to do is give it a good rinse, because one, you want to get rid of whatever papery taste might be present in your cup. Now, what I want to do is make sure that I'm first putting all the coffee inside over here. I'm not putting it directly in the doser because as you can see, there tends to be some spillage. And this is very specific to me because I'm a clumsy person. Just lock it in on top. Now you really don't need any sort of weighing scale. Like the beauty of this brewer is that you really don't need any sort of weighing scale because there are some volumetrics which are mentioned right on your brewer. So if I want to make sure that some water inside of it, I don't need a scale because there is reading over here which is very, very accurate. This also has this dosing cap which is of 6 grams. So if you don't have a scale available to weigh out your coffee bean, just scoop in some coffee in this, level it, and that's your 6 grams before you grind it in. So I'll get rid of this cap. I'll push this plunger inside. And now pour some coffee. So this particular brewer also gives you the option of pre-infusing your coffee puck before you start brewing directly. Pre-infusion, one of the key aspects it makes sure is that all your coffee grounds which are trapped inside are wet equally. And when the extraction is happening, there is no channeling. So the extraction it will come out very balanced. Sure.
What beans are these and what is this equipment called?
The beans that I'm using are a light roasted Nashville by Naivo. I got this custom made actually. This brewer is called a Delta Press. It's a Australian based brand. It's a travel gear basically. It gives you great hold on if you want to try out your recipe at different levels, like if you want to take more beans and less water, if you want to try out different types of beans, different grammages of water, different brewing timings, it gives you great hold on that without any having to take any additional equipment. So you can easily take your basic kettle and pour your water in. You really don't require a gooseneck kettle for this.
Shifting from instant coffee to specialty coffee, what roast flavors should one start with?
If you're shifting from instant to specialty, my first question would be how do you enjoy your instant? Do you have it black or do you have it with milk? If you're having it with milk in specialty, start with something that is a little medium dark to dark so that you can cut it down with a little milk and then gradually get rid of milk altogether. If you're someone who enjoys, there are some things called specialty in, instant as well. So if you're someone who enjoys black specialty coffees, I would suggest start with something that is a little medium to light to medium roasted, and also really heavily depends on what equipment you're using. So if you're trying to brew something which is medium to medium dark, use something as basic as a mocha pot to start with because it will extract a very syrupy type of coffee, which you can either decide to cut it down with a little bit of milk or even water for that matter. So you can see there has been no spillage that has happened in my carafe. My water has pre-infused for quite some time in here. What I'll do is I'll just pick this plunger up a little bit, around 50 ml, and just push it through. Now, if I want to pre-infuse it further, I can do that. but I enjoy a very balanced cup. I don't want too much acidity. Also, I don't want too much body. Also, I want something that is pleasant, that is in between, and that is a very sweet cup. So post infusing like around 50 ml, I'll just pick this up here and plunge this through. So one of the key things about this brewer is that since it's not brewing directly together with coffee in one chamber, you can brew as you like. There will be no harm in like, there will be no fear of over agitating the coffee or over extracting the coffee. Sure, Yama.
Please elaborate in details about the different brewing methods, which coffee is suitable for which method, pros and cons, and each method of brewing coffee.
If you have like a specific brewer that you want to ask me about, it'll be I can give you a more detailed answer. If you're looking for something for milk, I would suggest going for a brewer which can do a very syrupy kind of coffee, so something like a mocha pot or a home espresso machine. If you want to just enjoy a very subtle, nuanced, like flavorful cup, I would suggest go for a pour over. But then again, you cannot cut it down with any milk or sugar. It will like the actual flavor of the coffee won't come out. Uh, if you want something which is very robust and very like one take kind of a thing, that all I want is an espresso, is again an espresso machine or any manual espresso maker. Pros and cons really is like a very personal preference. Like having to add any milk is a con for me, but might not be that for you.
What home brewer you recommend a new home brewer to invest in case?
A new home brewer, if you have the budget, maybe a pour over, because with a pour over you will have to invest in a gooseneck kettle and a scale and everything. But if you're just getting introduced, you want to add any milk to it, go for the mocha pot. If you just want to have a black coffee like me, go for the Delta Plus.
Also tell us some good machines for home brew.
Depends on what you plan to do with it. If you just want to pull out some good espresso shots, uh, something entry level might also work. But if you want to have control over the temperature of your machine, you want to brew say 5 to 6 really good cups in a day. You want basic aspects like being a double. You want a double boiler, or you want something like uh, a bigger tank, or you want to make great lattes and cappuccinos at home. Uh, Something like a Rancilio's Sylvia Pro or above.
Delta Plus you're using,
Yeah.
what kind of final cup one brews? It is ideal for what palate?
Delta Press is great for someone who wants a great cup of black coffee. But if you wish to brew something more syrupy so that you can add milk to, you could do that also. Just take 18 grams of same coffee, instead of pouring 200 ml of water, pour around 80 to 100, not more than that, and just push it through. What will happen is your brew, like the final brew consistency that will come out, will be very syrupy in texture. So if you want to cut it down with a little bit of milk or water later on, you could also do that. So there are some steps that I generally tend to follow when I'm tasting my coffee. Uh, to put it simply, I take my coffee as seriously as I take my food. So visually, how it's looking. First aspect would be smelling it. Next would be slurping it. Now, uh, slurping is basically making the sound while you're sipping your coffee, right? What slurping helps you with is, there's a little bit of air that goes inside so that the temperature of your the coffee comes down and it doesn't burn your palate, and it also spreads around evenly. Now, as I'm tasting it, I'm able to like really like my mouth is salivating. That is a good sign because it's a light roasted coffee. So that since it's light roasted, there's a lot of fruitiness in that particular cup. So whenever you have something citrusy or fruity, your mouth starts salivating. So that's a good sign. Overall, it's like a very pleasant cup. I could have this any time of the day, to be honest. It's I know a lot of people prefer these kinds of coffee in the evening, but I'm someone who drinks 5 6 cups in a day. So this is sort of the perfect one for me, but it could differ from person to person. Since I'm not a milk person, I won't be cutting it down with anything. But if you want to purchase a Delta Press and want wish to add milk to it, just keep the water temperature at 90. Take 18 grams of coffee and don't pour 200. Just pour around 80 to 100 ml of water and push it through. You'll get a very syrupy decoction sort of a texture in the coffee. You can cut it down with your warm milk. Next, that I'm brewing is actually a medium roasted coffee. So this coffee says Kaldepura PSD. That's the estate name. PSD is the processing method. It's in the Baba Budangiri Hills in the Chikmagalur. The elevation is showing at around 1150 to 1250 meters above sea level. It's a 100% Arabica coffee, and you can see selection 795. Selection 795 is actually the plant varietal in Arabica. So if I had to explain it to you in layman terms, you have mango, but there are different types of mangoes. You have badam also, you have Ratnagiri, you have your totapuris also, you have your alphonsos also. And after tasting a bunch, you decide which one you like most. So selection 799 95 for me are generally tend to be fruity in nature, but adapts really well to your different roast levels that are available.
Another question, what home brand do you recommend for the one who's just starting in coffee?
Home grinder recommendation for someone who's starting out coffee. If you plan to start out your coffee journey with the espresso machine, something like a Mignon Chrono or a Baraja Seti minimum, or if you're someone who's like planning to start with a pour over or smaller manual brewing equipment, a Baraja Encore also works great.
If my end game is having an espresso setup and a good pour-over setup at home, which grinder would you recommend? Hand or automatic? Is 30 good enough for pour-over and espresso? If my budget is 22.
A Sette 30 actually will be great for an espresso. I haven't really gotten great manual brewing out of it. Uh, I would say invest a little more and get the Mignon Eureka. So I've already kept my water for heating. The next one that I'm brewing is the Espro Bloom. It's a flat bottom brewer. Has like I think 200 plus holes at the bottom, and the filter looks sort of like this. So the reason they give like not a plain filter and something with grooves in it is because it shouldn't stick to your brewer. And the moment your filter starts sticking to a brewer, your water that is being placed with your coffee will start dripping down at a lower rate, and it will start collecting on top of it. So this particular brewer, you can decide to use with your filters, paper filters as well, but you can also grind your coffee a little coarse and use it directly. So it comes in like a multi-brewer category. So as I said, with any paper filter brewing, right? I'll first rinse my cup. It will again do two things. It will rinse out my paper filter and it will also heat up my brewing carafe a little more. I'll just keep it aside while it's dripping and then weigh out my coffee. For Espro, my personal recipe, 80 grams for if it's a medium roasted coffee. And I'll grind it around medium, not too fine also, not too coarse also, something in between. A very sand-like texture, deep sand-like texture.
What is the name of that kettle for pour over? And is it necessary to get it while purchasing the pour over setup?
So this is called a gooseneck kettle. Uh, Gooseneck is basically the shape of the pourer. This particular kettle is called a Fellow Stag EKG. Fellow is the brand name. This is a PID kettle. What happens is if I put in a certain temperature that I want the water to heat up to only 80 degrees, it will heat up to 80 degrees and it will cut off. It won't boil over. So ideal temperature for brewing any coffee is between 90 to 94. But what I have noticed in my pour overs is I also enjoy it at 85. Uh, you don't want to use boiling water. You want to use like off the boil water. So you can see it's very sandy in texture. I'll just take some in my hand and show you. This is like taking some grinds on your hand and feeling it is like one of the best ways to understand grind sizes. If you're someone who's just starting out brewing coffee, I would suggest start as the first thing, because the grinder brand will vary, the burst type will vary. It will either be electric or hand. So it's best to like go by feel. I'll just pour my coffee in and level it so that there's no uneven extraction happening. And why a gooseneck kettle is important is something that you will see now, because while pouring your coffee, it's just dripping through. If the pouring is not controlled, what will happen is the water will just pass through the coffee without actually extracting any sort of flavors. So I want basic things like being able to control the flow rate from my kettle. So this particular coffee, I'll brew it under 2 minutes because it's going to go down very fast. And I'll start now. So the first 30 seconds is what I want to do is I just want to bloom my coffee a little bit. Blooming, general thumb rule that I follow is whatever amount of coffee I've taken, I pour double the amount of water in the first 30 seconds so that the water, like the extraction gets started. You can see if it was any normal kettle, the water would have just fallen through. This way, I can decide how much water I want the coffee to be introduced to at a particular stage.
Is there any recipe for water? Which is better, alkaline, normal tap water, or bottled mineral water?
Actually, it really is on preference. If I'm in Mumbai, I don't really like the tap water for my coffee brewing. So I carry these third wave waters. If I'm in Bangalore, I use the RO water. If I'm in a good like city with like generally which provides very clean water, I can use tap water as well. But as a general thumb rule, don't use tap water for your coffee. You will not be able to taste anything at all. So there's no clumping, there's no anything. Water has absolutely dripped down and I'll be able to taste it directly. My reaction to this coffee would be maybe for my next maybe for the next time I brew on the Espro Bloom, since it's slowing down a little faster, I try to go a little more finer because when I'm tasting it, it's a great cup, but I think I could extract a bit more from it to bring in a little more sweetness. But yeah, overall, a really, really good cup for someone who doesn't enjoy like too much fruitiness and not too much bitterness also. It's a very, very balanced cup. As I'm sipping it, there's like sort of a sweetness that has coated my palate. And I'm sure as it cools down also, the flavor will shine a bit more because the temperature is a little high right now. This is not recommended for someone who, like this particular brewer is not recommended for someone who tends to add milk or any sort of other flavors or additives to their coffee. This is purely for someone who wants a good black cup of coffee which is able to give you great nuances from the origin itself. So the next one that I'm brewing uh, is the Trinity Zero. It's a very, very compact brewer, newly introduced in the market. Your water goes here. There's a doser and a filter, metal filter that's at the bottom. You put your coffee here, hot water on top. So I think you can put in, if I see correctly, you can put in around 100 ml. They've marked it over here. Again, no need for any scales or anything. You can directly weigh out your beans in this, grind it, and start brewing. But since I have a scale and I'm very particular, I'll be weighing my coffee. For this brewer, I'm using a dark roast because I'm planning to add some milk to it or at least a little bit of hot water post brewing it.
How different is this from South Indian filter?
Which one?
So
Espro Bloom, different from South Indian filter, is that this is a drip method where you're brewing your coffee live. In South Indian filter, what happens is the grind size, the texture of the grind is very, very fine. So when you put water in it, it drips down really slow, and the consistency of the beverage that you get is very decoction, very syrupy like. So you basic differences is in this you cannot add any milk, sugar, anything, and in South Indian filter you intend to. So for this particular brewer, the Trinity Zero, I'm using a dark roasted coffee because I really want to find out if I cut it down with a little bit of milk, try to have it as it is, or by adding a little water, what are the changes it will go through. I'm taking around 18 grams. And as I said before, the best way to recognize a dark roast is you can see it has an oil coating on top of it. So during the roast, whatever oils were trapped inside the green beans have come out and have coated your roasted beans. Tikra? Okay. I'll grind this a little finer because it's literally going to be brewed in the next 60 seconds. You can see the texture of the grinds also. I'll take some in my hand and show you for better perspective. What you want to make sure is while you're brewing this particular brewer, you don't want to clog the brewer also, but also want to make sure that it's flowing through. I think this should be enough. And I'll just lock it at the bottom over here. Remove this lid and place it right on top of your whatever you're planning to drink it in. So this sort of has like a pump mechanism. What it does is once you put water in it, it pushes it down.
If I brew it with boiling water instead of 80 degrees, how does it change the flavor of the brew?
If you brew your coffee with boiling water, it won't be able to bring out the actual nuances or the flavor profile of the coffee. It will just end up burning it. So there is no hard and fast rule that it has to be 80 degrees. Just try not to go past 94. But if you're experimenting, if you want to find out what more your coffee could do, I would say use boiling water and find out. I've done it a bunch of times, and sometimes I've come out with very surprising results. Where using boiling water for my brewing for something like a French press has actually given me a sweeter cup. But it really depends on what sort of coffee, how well you've grinded. If you basically have to change a few parameters before you try it out. Okay, I'll just keep this on top of it. Make sure it's sturdy and just start pressing. So in this also, what you can do is you can make a good cup of black coffee. But if you want something more of a espresso-like consistency, again, I'm not saying espresso, but espresso-like consistency, just pour less water. I think that's good enough. You can see the texture, like it's a lot heavier than your Delta presses or your Espro blooms because I took less water while brewing it and I ground my coffee a little more finer. And for the simple fact that it's a dark roasted coffee, I'll have a sip as it is. I'll add a little bit of water and taste it, and I'll also cut it down with a little milk to understand what's the actual uh, capacity of brewing of this particular brewer. Definitely a lot denser, but my cup of coffee for sure. It's around 65 ml as of now, like the extraction that has come out. I'll add 30 ml of water, hot water, just to see what is the difference that is coming out. One tip, drink a lot of water when you're doing a coffee tasting because not just because it's recommended, but because you really want to make sure that your palate is cleansed before you taste the next coffee. Somehow it's actually better after adding the 30 ml of water because you can see a lot of complexities that were hidden actually coming out in the cup. Previously, what I was tasting was a very bittersweet brew, but now there is slight acidity that has been introduced in the coffee. And since I'm not a milk person, I'll just add a dash of it. I like the 90 ml brew better, but post adding milk, what I realized is you really don't need any sugar in it, any sort of additive. It's like the cup is sweet on its own. But if you're someone who's just starting out, who's like used to drinking sweet coffees, I would say add a little bit more of milk. Start with a little sugar and eventually try to cut it down a little by little. Uh, if you guys have any questions for me, you could put it in the chat box and we'll be more than happy to answer. Or if you're attending our live session on YouTube right now, you could put it over there also. Okay. I think that's it for today. We've covered most of the nuances or most of what happens at the farm level, how it affects your final brew. But if you want to learn more, if you want to find out more on coffee, there's a lot of content that we've been putting out on YouTube from our last session, even on this one. And there's a lot of behind the scenes that happens in our offices as well that we tend to put out. So you could definitely follow us on Instagram for more news on coffee, more trivia on coffee, more education on coffee. We have our YouTube page, which is which is youtube.com/something's brewing. There are very interesting guides that we've put out on our website on somethingsbrewing.in. Just go on our website, check under guides. We have something for someone who's trying to understand the nuances of brewing a good cup at home, and also general coffee information, a coffee guide. It's free for download. So I really hope you guys check it out because it's really good information that will definitely help you in brewing a good cup at home. Thank you so much for attending our session. I hope to see you guys next time as well. Do drop us recommendations on what you guys want to learn more. If you want more of these sessions, if you guys want to co-host a session with us as well, suggestions on topics, suggestions on brewer we should brew with, suggestions on coffees that you want us to try out, give you recommendations, and also please feel free to send in your recipes as well. We'll be more than happy to try out during these sessions. Thank you so much once again. I hope to see you next time.